If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Welcome back to the show. If you're watching this on video, you might have noticed that my background has changed. I decided to rearrange my house so that my front room could be more accommodating to guests because I'd like to have more people around. I'm still trying to figure out the lighting in this new space. The next two guest episodes were actually filmed before this one. So I think I'm getting it there, but we'll see once we finish with editing and whatnot. Sometimes it changes, but in any case, it's lovely to be here. I just finished a workshop on boundaries where I taught my GATES method, which, as a refresher, stands for ground in your body and your values, assess your capacity and your true yes, trust in the other's ability to manage, express your no without disconnecting, and steward your precious resources. For the grounding and assessing piece, we went through a somatic centering practice that's really helpful for, especially when you notice that you're a little bit dysregulated, to reconnect to your alignment. For trust and express, we practiced following a no with a yes. And for stewarding, we practiced saying yes with qualifications instead of leaving things open-ended and getting trampled. We had a lot of discussions along the way as well about boundaries in different scenarios. And so I just wanted to share some of the things that came up and some tools that I think are really helpful for navigating boundaries in tricky situations. And by the way, if you would like a free resource, go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and you can download my top reframe for making boundaries easier. Plus, I'll add you to my love newsletter so you can start receiving little love notes from me. Now, the first thing I want to say about tricky situations is that healthy boundaries will actually help you prevent ending up in them in the first place in a lot of instances. But when you find yourself there, some of my favorite go-tos, again, following a no with a yes. I'm not available for that, but I am available for this. And it's important to remember that it doesn't have to be apples to apples. Your counteroffer doesn't have to be another thing. It doesn't have to be anything. Your counteroffer can actually just be your presence. You can just say, I'm so sorry I'm not available for that, but I really appreciate you asking. Or, that was really brave of you. Or, I'm so glad you reached out. Whatever. Just any way to maintain the connection with something that you really are a yes to. When I talk about following a no with a yes, I'm not suggesting or advocating for the counteroffer to be another thing that is not aligned for you. Following a no with a yes should be a true yes, something that you really are comfortable offering or providing as an alternative. And again, it can just be your presence in that moment. That other tool that we talked about, saying yes with qualifications, it seems simple, but sometimes we don't think of it because it seems so obvious to us that if you ask to borrow my car, like, of course you're going to have it back by a reasonable hour, not 2 days later. But it never hurts to be extra clear. Sure, you can borrow my car, just have it back by 10. Or, yeah, I can help you out. I've got 10 minutes. Or, I'm happy to talk with you when I have a little bit more time. Is tomorrow okay? Just any sort of like qualifier on your yes to be clear about how you're able to fulfill that yes. Now, another thing that is so important that it often gets overlooked, and even I frequently forget to give words to this to make it an express tool because it's so simple and yet so easy to forget. You don't have to say no or yes immediately. You can do one of two things as an alternative to those. You can pause, do a body scan, check in with yourself, especially if this is like a text or an email thing. But even if the person's in front of you, you can just say, take a pause, take a breath, think on it. It's really uncomfortable, especially for us recovering people pleasers, to make someone wait for us while we think about it. But it's not as uncomfortable for them as it is for us, or as we think it is for them either. It only takes a moment. Probably 30 seconds is enough to do a scan and do a little assessment, see how you feel, check out where your resources are before you answer. And if it feels too frazzling to do that pause and assess on the spot, the second really handy option as an alternative to responding with a yes or a no in the moment, it's so easy, but I want you to hear me. Let me think about it and get back to you. What? Yes, you can not give an answer immediately in most cases. And in fact, on a side note, a sense of urgency is an internal red flag for me. If I'm in a situation where I'm feeling a sense of urgency, and it could be like, oh my gosh, I need to answer them right away. It could also be, oh, I have to act on this thing now. It can also show up in like romantic relationships, especially like early dating phases, where that urgency is actually more of an excited thing than an anxious thing. So I'm like, I have to hear from them right now. I have to reach out to them right now. I have to reconnect to them right now. The alternative to that is calm, centered, secure, trusting, knowing that I'm going to see them soon, knowing that it's going to be okay, knowing that I can be with the discomfort of longing and that it's safe and that it can actually fuel the fires of passion. You know, absence makes the heart grow fonder. You don't have to rush to alleviate that tension. It's okay. It's often good for you. So again, in a situation where I feel the sense of urgency to respond, it's a red flag for me, because it means that however I respond to the request, to the offer, to the invitation, to the opportunity, if I'm doing it from a sense of urgency, I'm more likely to respond out of alignment, because urgency is already out of alignment with my values and goals. I am most aligned when I'm calm and centered. So if I'm feeling flustered, or if I'm feeling like I've got like a reflexive need to give an answer, that's a nice cue for me to pause and either check in with myself or be like, I'm too flustered to access my truth right now. And then you can just say, hey, you know what? Let me think on it and get back to you. I know it's simple. I know you've heard of it before. I know this isn't something entirely new, but I'm rambling at length about it because it's really that important. And I feel like I've kind of neglected it because it's seemingly so obvious, but it's not. It's hard to access that tool in the moment. So I'm beating this dead horse because I'm trying to beat it into your heads lovingly. You don't have to answer right away. It's a really important thing when it comes to healthy boundaries. Now, another thing that came up was the work context, which makes it a little bit different. Some of the participants today said that they felt pretty good about their boundaries in their personal life, but that it was a lot harder with work because the dynamic there is different. And one gal, for example, she was saying that it just felt a little bit more complicated because she had entered into this like employment agreement. And so it was harder for her to delineate where her boundaries were appropriate. And another gal offered a tool that I've heard before and that I definitely advocate for, especially in a work setting, which is where if you are already at capacity and someone is asking you to take on something else, then you can just say, sure, here's what's on my plate. I don't really have room to add this unless you want it to replace something else. So what would you like me to remove from my plate in order to take on this new thing? It's a great way to stay boundaried, to stay within your capacity, and to sort of follow no with a yes. It's like, well, no, I can't do that on top of everything, but I can do that if we trade. Let's see, what else came up today? Oh, yes. Another frequent challenge people have is with family members. Like siblings came up a lot, younger siblings especially, where we feel responsible for other people in a way that's a little excessive. Especially, we're talking about adults. And there's this difficulty where, and it doesn't have to be siblings, it's just one example, but anytime we feel like we need to save people from the adversities of life, we fall into a rescuer pattern, which unfortunately is really disempowering and frankly disrespectful to the sovereignty and the immense divine power that is within each of us. But when we feel responsible for other adults, all we end up doing when we rescue them, when we swoop in to solve their problems for them or help them in a temporary Band-Aid kind of way, we're essentially giving them a fish instead of teaching them how to fish, which means that we're keeping them dependent on us, which on a subconscious level is usually what's motivating that type of behavior, because we find our sense of worth in being needed instead of actually being helpful and teaching them how to fish and become more independent and empowered. So we talked about the Karpman drama triangle. I'll put a link to a great article on it in the show notes. And this is essentially this pattern of different roles that we play, such as victim, savior, and persecutor. And the victim feels completely powerless in the world. Everything just happens to them. It's not my fault. I don't know. I can't fix it. Somebody needs to help me. And then in swoops the savior / rescuer. It's like, I will help you. And then they just help them in a really superficial level in a way that enables the victim's delusion of disempowerment. And then the persecutor is a role that's basically the bully. Like, it's not their fault either, but they know whose it is. It's yours, and they're coming for you. Someone else, Karpman, Karpman, devised the Karpman drama triangle. Someone else, whose name I forget, came up with the empowerment dynamic, which reverses the triangle and shifts each role so that the victim now becomes the creator. So instead of saying, I can't, they say, how can I? The savior becomes the coach. So instead of saying, oh, you poor helpless thing, let me fix it for you or do it for you, they remember the divinity of the person in front of them. And they say, wow, it sounds like a big challenge. What are you going to do? How can I support you? And then the persecutor can become the challenger by saying, okay, here's how I see my role in this situation. Here's how I see your role in this situation. Here's what you can do to make it better moving forward. I believe in you. Go do it. But ultimately, it was that rescuer pattern that we discussed that drives a lot of unhealthy boundary behavior, where we overgive and to some extent overstep the other person's boundaries in terms of, like, we claim responsibility for their stuff. So in a way, we're like robbing them of that power, because responsibility is the ability to respond. And you're not strengthening that for someone if you steal that responsibility from them. There is an immense amount of power in owning our boundaries, stewarding our precious resources, and claiming responsibility for our self-care. There's also a whole lot of love in that. So if you would like some support on your unique journey, go to explorelovingboundaries.com, grab a spot on my calendar for a free call. We'll just explore options and get you supported. While you're here though, if you haven't already, please subscribe, share with others, and wherever you're at on your journey, I send you love and courage. Namaste.